I'm going to show you now how to put an interior zipper pocket into your pouch. The things that you will need for today's tutorial are one of your lining pieces that's already been cut to the 8.5 by 11 size and interfaced. You will also need another piece in a coordinating or also from your lining fabric that has been interfaced as well. This will be your pocket lining piece. You will need a zipper that is about 8 inches. You can trim it if it's longer. And you will need another small scrap. My scrap is 8 inches by 1.5 inches, and that is our pocket facing piece. So to start, take your lining piece and you're going to put your pocket facing centered 1 inch down from the top. And that's going to make putting your zipper in much neater. So you put your facing straight down here, and then you need to secure that to your lining piece. You can use pins to secure it. I like to use double-sided tape. I just put a little bit on each corner, or sometimes just opposite corners. Okay, now our pocket lining is 8 inches, but we don't want to go all the way to the edge because we're going to need to sew the sides here. So we need to draw a box on here, and that is going to be the size of our pocket opening. So with that taped in place, you want to draw a line. This doesn't have to be exact, so I am just going to draw a rough line. It's 1/2 inch from the top, 1 inch down from the bottom. So just draw a rough line across there. And then you want another line that is 3/8 of an inch below that. And look, my line didn't even come out properly there. And then you want to come in 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch from the end. I actually think I'm going to do 5/8. And that just gives you a good amount of space to sew your side seam of your pocket. So now what we need to do is, you can see the box that we've drawn here. We're going to sew around this box directly on the line that we've drawn. After we've done that, we're going to slice it open and turn the facing through. So let's get this machine going. Move this out of the way. And I'm just going to sew directly on that line all the way around. You want to make sure you have nice, neat corners. So go slow, and then if you need to hand crank it to get it into the corner there, you can do that. And then sometimes you just need to do a little bit of a shorter stitch. So I lift my presser foot and just go back a little. You can also do it this way, do a little side stitch. Nice and slow. Back to the start, and then meet up with your initial stitches there. Back stitch to secure. Now to open that up. So I'm going to take my ruler again and draw a line down the middle of my box, starting about 1/4 of an inch from the end, maybe 3/8 of an inch. Draw the little triangle there. Same on this end. And now I'm going to cut along this center line and into these little lines towards the corners here, making sure not to snip through any of my stitches there. If you do snip through any of your stitches, you just can go back to your machine and sew your box again. Very carefully. Something that you can do is take a pin and just put a little pin through the end here. If you just tuck that just inside your stitch line, you won't accidentally slice through your stitches. Your rotary cutter won't go through that pin. And then just snipping very carefully into the corner as close as you can without snipping through any of those stitches. And now you can take out your pins or your tape, whatever you've used to hold your facing on. And now we need to turn that facing through to the other side. So I've got my seam roll. You can also do this with your iron. So I finger press first, just tuck it through along the top, creasing it as I go. Get the seam roller, press that down. And the same on the bottom. Just roll out the seam, make it nice and flat. Flip it over. Pull it all the way through. Then press it from this side. Sorry, bumping the camera there as I roll over this seam. Okay. It'll sit flatter once we actually sew the pocket piece in. But as you can see, we've created that nice opening there. Now we need to put in our pocket. So you can set this aside for the moment. Take your lining, pocket lining piece and your zipper. This is the right side of the fabric. The interface side is at the back. What we're going to do is clip this zipper to the lining. Now you need to be careful if you have a zipper with stops on it. I actually like to remove those. I don't want to hit them with my needle. So I just take a pair of pliers and they just pull off pretty easily. They're pretty pokey, so just make sure you put them straight in the garbage. Just be careful once you pull those off that you don't accidentally pull your zipper completely off, your zipper pull off. And then these ones I pull from the back side, and then that way I just don't have to worry about my needle hitting any parts of the zipper, and the ends will be sewn over when we insert the pocket, so I don't have to worry about the zipper coming off, the zipper pull coming off later. You don't have to do that. Just make sure if you don't take them off, if they're going to be nearby where you're sewing, that you don't sew through them by accident, because you can break your needle and end up flying off into your eyeball. Okay, so now we need to attach this to the top here. I like to clip it. So just center your zipper. If your zipper is longer than your piece, you can do it wherever you want. So we're just going to trim it. Just make sure when you trim that you don't accidentally trim your pull completely off, because that's certainly something that's being done. Okay, so I'm going to sew one side at a time. Tools out of the way. Okay, I'm just using a regular presser foot here. I'm not using a zipper foot. You could use a zipper foot if you wanted to get closer to the zipper, but I am only going to be sewing this part at about 1/8 of an inch, so a regular foot is perfectly fine. Okay, so that's one part done. This again is the right side of the lining piece. That's the back side of your zipper. Then you're going to fold that up, right sides together, and sew along the other edge of the zipper. Make sure that you're lining your side seams up there. Clip or pin along the top again. I'm going to sew down the other side of the zipper, making sure that this is kept out of the way so you don't accidentally sew your pocket closed. Okay, now you need to decide which way you want your zipper to go. I always install my zipper pockets with the pull going this way, so that's how I'm going to install that, but it might be different for you if you prefer it the other way. That is totally fine. So now we need to put the pocket piece into the lining. So the way this is going to look is it's going to sit here over the top like that, and then we're just going to sew along the top here, the bottom there, and then once those two lines are sewn on, we're going to fold this over, sew down the side there, down the side there, being sure to catch this little triangle here so that it closes up the entire pocket. You can pin that in place. I like to use double-sided tape. Use double-sided tape for a lot of things. So I stick it across the top here. And then again along the bottom. That off the top first, then keeping my facing folded out of the way, I line up the edges of my facing with the edges of my pocket lining, And then just stick it down on top of the zipper here. My opening is 3/8 of an inch, which means that you want the zipper from the middle about 3/16 of an inch on either side. You want that opening. You can, that's why the tape is good, because you can wiggle it as you need to. It also doesn't matter if it's not entirely centered. So that looks pretty good. So if I'm happy with that, which I am, I'm going to peel the bottom tape off. Maybe. Then pull that facing back again to keep it out of the way and nice and neat. Stick it down on the other side. Doing your best to keep it nice and flat. Smooth it out. Okay. So you can see that that is centered there. I'm going to sew across the top first, back stitch at the end, take my needle out, cut my threads, and start again along the bottom, making sure when I flip it around that the pocket piece that's here is flipped out of the way. You want to keep the facing and the zipper part underneath, but you're going to pull that pocket piece like that, otherwise you're going to accidentally sew it closed. Ask me how I know. Okay, let's sew that up. So making sure that that's nice and flat. Make sure your lining is pulled down for the top part. And then sewing next to your zipper. Back stitch. I start my stitches around the end points, start and stop them around the end points, not too far beyond, because when you fold this over to sew your side seam, you don't want your stitches going too deep that way. Otherwise, you won't be able to pull it over enough to get nice and close to the end of that zipper. Getting close to the zipper pull here, so I'm just going to slide it back this way. Doesn't want to. And if you can see your facing piece more than you would like, you can just pull that out of the way as you go here. Okay, now I'm going to go the other side, so I'm going to take my lining, pull it this way. Make sure that it's out of the way and I'm not accidentally going to sew it closed. Keep my zipper nice and flat. And then I'm going to sew along the other side. Starting my stitches just where the end bit is on the other side, and sometimes I just like to stick my hand in one last time to make sure I'm not accidentally sewing my pocket down. Make sure the facing is pulled out of the way. Alright, so now we have the pocket installed here. You can see it is open, but we need to close the side seams. So smooth it out. Flatten that out. I don't worry about clipping or pinning that. I just sew straight down the edge. I need to catch this triangle here. You can sew straight down as a straight line, or you can sew down till you get past the zipper and then come out and then sew down here if you want to make your pocket a little bit bigger. I'm just going to sew straight down there. I like to go back and forth over that triangle a couple of times. That's where the zipper is. So you want to make sure that you're going nice and slow over the coils. And certainly if you did not remove your metal ends, you want to be very careful. Okay, so we've sewn down one side of our pocket. Now we need to do the same on the other side. This one I sew from the bottom up to get as close as I can. So just make sure that your pocket piece is nice and flat. Sometimes it can curl up a little bit as you get close. So you can see here, this is why we don't want to go too far beyond the end of the facing piece here, because you have to fold this over, and if your stitches go too far this way, you won't be able to pull it enough to catch that triangle. So straight up that side, heading towards this triangle. Now, my zipper pull is there, so I'm just going to slide that out of the way. And be very careful not to catch your lining piece here when you're sewing that side pocket seam. And there you have it. I will trim these bits off the end here. And you can see I have a fair amount of material here on this side of the zipper, so I'm going to actually trim that up too. And there you have it. You have the pocket inserted into your lining. I need to obviously trim my thread still, but you can see you have your pocket inserted there, and then you just put this into your pouch the same way that you did the plain lining piece, and then you will have a pocket on the inside of your pouch. Thanks everyone. Bye.